After the Dodgers started the ninth inning with 3 straight hits, I thought to myself, there's no way in the world that Shohei Ohtani won't come up at least representing the tying run, maybe the winning run. And then I remembered there's one way in the world that won't happen. Let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and thanks to those of you who are here with us live on Tuesday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, so what a game you picked. But my name is Jeff Snyder. That guy next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. And this was a frustrating game in a lot of ways, Vince. The Dodgers, I can think of at least 3 things that were really frustrating. One was the Dodgers having a lot of chances to score early and not really capitalizing on any of them. Another one was the fact that it seemed like the Padres punished almost every mistake Landon Knack made, which is frustrating. And then I feel like probably losing the game on a game-ending triple play when you have the tying runs on base and Shohei Ohtani on deck. I'd never thought about it before, but I assume that's the most frustrating way to lose a game. I never thought about it because, of course, that would never happen. And then it happened. Just a dumb game, huh?
Yeah, it was. I was talking with some people before the game, and different people asking me confidence level and everything else. Like, I have no idea. The Dodgers could sweep the series, and I wouldn't be surprised. The Dodgers could get swept, and I would be probably less surprised, I guess, maybe. But I had no idea. And, one thing I did say is the Dodgers need to score first. And even though they did score first, just the way that they actually scored and the fact that they left runners on base and everything, like, it was like a deflating way to score first. And then the Padres get it right back right after. And then, the Dodgers have a couple more chances along the way, never really get it going. A lot of not great ABs on the way to that ninth inning. And then you get to the ninth inning and you're thinking, okay, well, Suarez has been bad lately. If the Dodgers are going to have a chance, it'll be because Ohtani gets to the plate, because you just count, runners and base runners and realistically, and then everything that gets to that point, and then you get to the point where, oh, okay, like there's no way he's not going to bat. And then, there was a way he's not going to bat, like you said. And it's, I know we're going to talk about the decision real quick, but and seeing Roberts kind of explain why they took the bunt off because of the defense the Padres were playing in, made it, more likely that they're going to get the out at third. Me, I'm not one to advocate for a bunt, and I'm definitely not one to, take everything in the microcosm of the situation and kind of take the big picture of it. But it's hard for me to take the big picture out in this one. It's one of those where if Rojas bunts, the worst case scenario, unless your runners both fall down, is that Shohei Ohtani comes to the plate at least as the tying run. And that should have been the only motivation really in that ninth inning.
Yeah. And realistically, probably represent the winning run. And yeah, there's definitely arguments against the sack bunt because yes, they would have intentionally walked. If Rojas gets the bunt down, second and third, 1 out, they absolutely intentionally walk Shohei Ohtani. I get that. It gives them the platoon advantage, scores against Mookie. We've seen them, Shohei Ohtani, get intentionally walked ahead of Mookie Betts a couple times this year. It has not worked out for the opposing team. It doesn't mean Mookie would have got the job done. For me, I think you can take the thought of a triple play almost out of the equation, even though that's actually what happened. That's not a reasonable thing to be concerned about. I don't think it's a fluke. Triple plays are like inside the park home runs. They're almost always flukes. Something weird happened. So I don't necessarily think anybody should predict the triple play, but I do think a double play is a very reasonable concern there because Miguel Rojas hits a lot of balls on the ground. Robert Suarez gets a lot of balls on the ground. Miguel Rojas runs very slow. And so even just for the fact that a double play takes the tying run off the bases, and yes, it's Shohei Ohtani coming up next, and he's the tying run when he steps in the batter's box, but if they get a double play, a third to first, they're still going to walk Ohtani, probably. And then, it's a double play was a very reasonable concern. And Rojas had already hit in one double play. I hate sacrifice bunts. Everydayers know I hate sacrifice bunts. And I don't think it's 100% absolutely, it's absolutely the wrong decision. But in this case, the only argument for me against the sac bunt is, well, but then they're going to walk Ohtani. And for me, it's that's why you have Mookie and Freddie. That's why you put 3 MVPs at the top of your lineup instead of just one. So if they walk one, there's still 2 more. And I don't think that's a good reason. And they said it was the defense. They were worried about. But yeah, bunting in a double play is less likely to hit into a double play for Rojas. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The worst case is they would have got the force out at third. And okay, well, now they won't walk Ohtani. And Ohtani's home run could be a walk-off homer, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the one time where I will say it was 100% the wrong call, just for the simple fact of you're looking at worst-case scenario. Their defense is playing to get the out at third. Your worst-case scenario in that is Shohei Ohtani. The way Roberts is thinking it, he's obviously not thinking of, oh, well, he might butt into a double play. He literally said they're playing the defense to get the runner at third. Okay, so you have Shohei Ohtani with first and second and 1 out, and you still have a chance. If the other worst-case scenario is, he gets the bunt down, they walk Ohtani, okay, you have bases loaded, 1 out for Mookie Betts. It's obviously hindsight is 2020, and the triple play is the craziest way for that to go. But it also, like you said, the double play was maybe just as likely as him striking out or something like that. I don't know. He didn't hit a double play already in that game, did he?
Rojas, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He already did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, it's one of those where you're playing a different ball game when, if it was someone else on deck, okay, I understand. Let Rojas hit away. He came clutch a couple of times, this season, and he's a guy that's going to make contact. But the reason that he does make contact also makes him more liable to hit into a double play. And you're just taking not only does the double play take the tying run off base, but it also doesn't guarantee that Mookie's going to bat. And there was no guarantee with multiple runners on base, but still, you're essentially guaranteeing Mookie's going to bat. And yeah, I don't know. It ultimately, the rest of the game was bad too. But for it to come down to where you have a chance with your best hitters coming to the plate and you don't let it get that point because of they were playing a defense that's going to still give us our best hitter at the plate with 2 runners on base is not, the right decision, I think.
Especially because it was Rojas, who is one of the better bunters on the team. I saw somebody in the chat earlier, actually, before we hit start, saying, why not use Kiermaier there when we know he can bunt? Rojas is a good bunter. Rojas can bunt. And for me, he had the bunt sign. And he got a buntable pitch. That's the thing that's maybe the most frustrating for me is that you were told to bunt. You got a pitch that you could bunt. It's low, so you don't got to worry about popping it up. You're going to get that ball on the ground. Bunt that ball. That's the frustrating part for me because, with 1 strike, I get it. In this situation, I would have had a bunt on even if they got to 2 strikes. Because a strikeout is better than a double play too there. Don't tell Kevin from the incline that I said that. He and I have argued about that. But yeah, I'll take a strikeout over a double play there. Absolutely take it over a triple play, which I didn't even I know triple plays exist. It never crossed my mind that it was a possibility there until it happened.
And I guess though, him saying that Machado is playing in their whatever their defense was, I guess that, you're not thinking about triple play at all. But if there's one way you're going to get a triple play, it's when the third baseman is playing even with the bag. And if there's a ball hit right to him, it's very easy to turn that around, especially with the arm that Machado has and Rojas being slow. So, yeah, again, not to harp on the point, we both disagree with it. Obviously, this is probably one of the, first times where we're both very vehemently against what was decided on. And
especially when we're saying it's a sac bunt. This is off brand, but Here we are.
But yeah, like I said, it just kind of felt that game. That game never really had the energy it should have had, and not to say that the Dodgers didn't have the energy, because if you score more runs, maybe you have more energy, but it was just a weird game from the start. Like I said, they scoring first and not feeling great about it, to getting right down right after, and then just the way it went the rest of the way. There was one bright spot and interesting thing that happened on Tuesday, and it had to do with a guy that Jeff said was not going to make his major league debut this year. So now we're going to talk about how he did make
segueing while I'm hosting?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Vince just did the segue. We'll talk about Edgardo Henriquez in a second. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The postseason's coming up, and if you're thinking about following your favorite team across the country this October, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about other teams' cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in a rival team city. If a city has a big league team, it also has great places to stay. I have personally booked great hotels in nearly every MLB city in America, and Booking.com makes that so much easier. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel, October travel, this MLB postseason. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right. I didn't say when you win your first $5 bet. When you place it, you get $200 in bonus bets. So it's almost like free money. And I'm looking at Thursday night football this week, the Cowboys against the Giants. Giants are plus 205 underdogs. Put your $5 on that, and you get your $200 in bonus bets. And if the Giants pull off the upset, then boom, you made a little money on that. Worst case scenario, they don't, and you still got your $200 in bonus bets. So check out FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook today, and get started. Hey, we're back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Locked On Sports LA is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast after most games, hosted by Pete Fox. Remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. And for your second listen today, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Sully, covering all of Major League Baseball. I suspect he will talk about the game-ending triple play in this game on his show too. I also want to shout out the Padre fans in our chat. Hey, guess what? Numbers count. It doesn't matter who's rooting. Go tell all your friends to come watch too. I could use the numbers. And yeah, let's talk. There was actually a little bit of excitement here last night on this very podcast. We were talking about the Dodgers bullpen, and I said the Dodgers won't call up Edgardo Henriquez. His command is not ready. He would not be successful at the major league level at this point. It took 14 hours for me to be proven wrong, which is pretty good for me. Like that's a long time that I got to be right. I mean, in my defense, they didn't call him up for the next 14 hours. Like I was absolutely right for those 14 hours. And then I was wrong. And he made his major league debut tonight, and he looked pretty good. He got 2 strikeouts. He did. You could see some of the command things like that are concerns. Somehow Kyle Higashioka only got a single after ripping a screaming double off the wall in left center field. Tommy Edman played it well. Higashioka doesn't run fast, although he did get a stolen base. I don't think Henriquez's strong suit is holding the runners on either. But the stuff is undeniably good. And I was very, very excited to be wrong in this case, because Vince, like when we were talking about the bullpen yesterday, there's not a lot of like there's some good pieces. I think the Dodgers have, and I actually somebody was like, "Wow, you guys were really rough on the bullpen." And I like, well, we were talking about the last couple pieces. Who's going to be the bottom of the bullpen? Because I feel good about a lot of guys at the top of the bullpen. But when you're talking about the bottom of the bullpen, it's like, and Henriquez is a guy who gets the bottom of the bullpen who, like, it's a question mark, but at least the possible answer is really exciting.
Because what he brings is the unknown. And we talked about this with Dalton Rushing, maybe being able to sneak by and be one of those people that catches, fire, and because guys don't know how to pitch to him yet or don't figure it out and don't have the time to figure it out. And that's the same thing with Henriquez, where, some of the swings or even some of the check swings, the non-full swings, those guys had no idea what was coming again with Henriquez. And that was Tatis as well. Higashioka maybe took away a good pitch for Tatis, kind of stealing, because he had it so stolen that Tatis had to let it go, and it was maybe a little bit of a hanging breaking ball over the middle of the plate. But he still had another check swing earlier in that at bat, and yeah, he didn't touch 104. He touched 101, and he placed it well. Again, we don't know. It might be a matter of effectively, wow, he might not know where it's going, but everything about it looked good. Like some of the off-speed stuff away. He got the strikeout on an off-speed pitch away. He threw, what's his other pitch? He threw that 191.
He calls it a cutter.
Okay, yeah.
But it looks like a slider to me. And we had the same thing with Michael Kopech. When you throw that hard, it's hard to tell the difference between a cutter and a slider sometimes.
Yeah, but it was enough to get you excited about. And honestly, I've heard about him, and seeing the grainy AAA or single A videos, they don't have the best quality down there. I didn't realize he looks like, I said a baby Gratterall, but he looks like, if you're a Pokemon fan, he looks like the Gratterall before it evolves into the next iteration of it. That's because he's like a little bit thinner, doesn't have a long hair, whatever the case, but it looks just like him.
Yeah, and you weren't watching on TV because you were at the game. Joe Davis said they actually call him Baby Gratterall. That's actually his nickname. My wife actually just glanced at the screen. She said, "Did he cut his hair?" I said, "Well, this is his debut. You've never seen him before." She's like, "Oh," and then she looked, "Oh yeah, that's not Gratterall." I said, "Nope." It's like when I used to call Dennis Santana Thinly Jansen because he looked like a skinny version of Kenley. Nando says Edgardo has an edge to him, and yeah, that's another thing that Joe Davis said on the broadcast was, you fake it till you make it, and Henriquez is really faking it. Like, he looks like he belongs there. He doesn't look intimidated. He's out there, and we hear 104, and I think I saw somebody saying, how many pitches before he sets the record for hardest pitch ever by a Dodger? And, the fact that he's hit 104 doesn't mean he's going to throw 104. His fastball averaged 99 point something in the minors this year. Like, I think he hit 101 once tonight.
Yeah, the strikeout was 101.
101, right around there is like, yes, I'm sure he has the 104 in him. We may see it at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see much harder than 101 or 102. But this was a really good audition for him. And like I said, when you talk about a potential for the postseason roster, he has a lot of the boxes you're looking for. He doesn't appear to be intimidated by a big atmosphere. He has strikeout stuff. He throws hard, and he has an advantage today. That's the thing. If we're throwing cold water on any of this, it's that he got called up 3 hours before the game. I know that teams have scouting reports on minor league players, but I suspect that Fernando Tatis and who else struck out? Who was the first strikeout? I can't remember who it was now. It was Donovan Solano, who doesn't strike out much. I suspect neither of them were super familiar with Henriquez's arsenal coming in. And so it is easier, Solano swings and misses at that slider or cutter or whatever. And then maybe Tatis is expecting that, so he swings at the high fastball. There's always going to be adjustments as the league gets more data on him, but the stuff is really good. And so I don't think we should necessarily expect a huge adjustment. And the thing that you and I have said in past weeks when we were advocating for Henriquez to get called up was that adjustment takes a little while for the league to make sometimes. And so if he can fake his way through October, like Francisco Rodriguez did in 2002, we'll take that for sure. If he could be a factor in October, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he gets thrown into. I would imagine they were trying to find what they call a soft landing spot for him. That being the last two batters in the order, and then hopefully he gets the first batter out before you get to some of the other guys on the Padres. But it worked out, and he looked good. And the Dodgers, Robert before the game says he has a chance to make the postseason roster, and obviously we knew that once they called him up. Why else would they call him up? The Dodgers are playing for the division still, so there is, they still do need to win games, but they are ultimately, postseason is clinched. They're ultimately trying to figure out what that is in terms of roster construction, and this guy could find a way onto it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so that's one good thing that came out of this game. There's two more games coming up, and as we've talked about, looking at the series as a whole, there's still plenty of hope for this series. As frustrating as this game was, we're going to dig into the rest of the series, probably grumble some more about this game. So thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love sports, I love concerts, I love comedy shows. The thing they all have in common is buying tickets, and that means the other thing they have in common is you can find the best price on Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. I've bought concert tickets. I bought comedy show tickets. I mentioned when I went to the Shohei Ohtani bobblehead, I bought my parking pass for Dodger Stadium while I was sitting in line for the parking lot for 2 hours waiting for the gate to open. It's so easy. Just do it on your phone. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Hey, we're back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being here with us on a frustrating night. We know that sometimes watching a podcast about your favorite team after they just lost in excruciating fashion isn't the most fun thing, but hopefully it's also a little bit therapeutic sometimes. I am a big fan of the idea that even when we disagree, we all come from the same point of loving the Dodgers, wanting the Dodgers to be successful. And so it is a little therapeutic to spend time together as frustrated fans after a game like this. You guys know I don't let myself get angry during the regular season. This one, as we know, had a postseason feel, has postseason implications. So I did let myself get to the frustrated point. Didn't get angry. In fact, I laughed after the triple play because sometimes all you can do is laugh when the stupidest thing in the history of the world happens. So I laughed at that. But thanks for being here with us. Remember, go become a Locked On Dodgers insider. Join subtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Listen to the Dodgers on SiriusXM and the SXM app, all that stuff. There's 2 games left, Vince. Dylan Cease against Jack Flaherty tomorrow, which is obviously the Dodgers' best chance from a pitching standpoint, but maybe their worst chance from a hitting standpoint. It's the Dodgers' best against the Padres' best. For me, I guess one bit of solace I take is that the Dodgers being lousy today doesn't mean they're going to be lousy tomorrow. And that it really is true that baseball is different from day to day. And so as frustrating this game was, there's nothing that no grand conclusions you can actually draw from this game. The Dodgers had a ton of base runners against Michael King, a good pitcher, a well-timed hit here and there, and it would have been a much different game. Now I think those slumps happen. Runners with scoring position slumps happen for teams, but they also end just as suddenly as they started. And so the fact that the Dodgers were lousy with runners in scoring position today doesn't mean they will be tomorrow. Doesn't mean they won't be, but it doesn't mean they will be. And so it's for me, and I'm not going to tell anybody else how to fan. I don't believe in that. But for me, my approach to tomorrow is going to be, hey, it's a new day. The Dodgers just lost in kind of an embarrassing way for them. And maybe that motivates them, and maybe they come out and just say, Dylan Cease, sorry, but you are the object of our frustration, and we're going to take it out on you. And maybe the Dodgers have an angry win tomorrow, which would be, I would like that a lot.
At this point of the year, it's one of those things where every game, like you said, every game is its own entity at this point. Like tomorrow's game will be separate from the game on Thursday, and then depending on what happens in those two games, then the games this weekend will become their own. Like every game is going to be its own series to a certain extent, which means the Dodgers, Dave Rod before the game said he's going, funnily enough, he's going to play to win these games. He's going to treat it basically like postseason games. And, that's kind of how I felt early in this game and heading into it was, as long as the regular season is, and we preach to enjoy the regular season, the job isn't done in the regular season. And, these games are essentially these three specifically because the Dodgers needed to win at least one in order to control their destiny for heading into Colorado. So it was one of those things where they needed to win one. So yeah, it felt playoff-y to me. And me, I get more irrational when it comes to playoff baseball for the Dodgers. And that's what it felt like initially, in the sense of my rational sense of what the Dodgers are, which is you got the starter on the ropes early in the game. You maybe get 1 or 2 runs, but not as many as you could. And then the starter settles in a little bit. And then, whatever happens on the other side of things, and then now you're playing in a game that's much closer than it should have been. I think of 2019 NLDS Game 5, how they had Strasburg multiple runners on those first couple innings, don't get the runs they need, don't get that big hit, and then he ends up pitching longer into the game than expected, and then you don't get into that bullpen of the Nationals, and everything kind of goes from there. And there's other things I can kind of think of letting guys off. I think 2015 against the Mets in one of those games they had guys.
That's when I was just pulling up that box score that the Dodgers had Jacob deGrom on the ropes and couldn't get a single run in against him, and then he settled in, and that was game 1 of that series. They lost 3-1 when they should have. I'm just scrolling through the play-by-play. The Dodgers had base runners every single inning, multiple base runners, until the 5th inning was deGrom's first 1-2-3 inning. And then the 6th inning was his second one. And then the 7th inning was his third one. They let him off the hook, and then he settled in. That there was definitely, I was thinking about that game during this game.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it comes down to for me. And for the offense, the frustrating part is that the Padres top of the order didn't do much. The Dodgers top of the order didn't do much. But Jake Cronenworth, who has had not a great September at all, comes through and, has the home run and the other RBI double. And for me, it's just why, how come the Dodgers don't get that sometimes? And, obviously they do, but in the moment you feel like, how come the Dodgers don't have, their number 8 hitter, come through when they need to, or their number whatever guy, or the guy that's 0 for his last 20, how come that doesn't happen? And I think, that's where I start feeling okay, the games matter a little bit more right now. And that's why I start feeling that way.
Yeah. And we do have to remember the negative. Kike Hernandez did hit a game-tying homer off Kenley Jansen this year. That was just as unlikely as Jake Cronenworth's home run. The Dodgers do get those things. They didn't today. They got the unlikely thing in the way opposite direction. But yeah, this is one of those games. And I joke sometimes, about the 5th inning of this game, I said to my son, okay, the narrative of this game is either going to be the Dodgers let the Padres off the hook and it cost them, or the Padres weren't going to be able to hold the Dodgers off forever. And you never know which storyline is going to be until the end. And Sunday against the Rockies, it was the second one. It was, okay, they're not going to be able to hold them off forever. This time, it almost was. It should have been. It could have been. It wasn't. But, all of the pieces were in place for an improbable comeback win. That would have been so backbreaking for the Padres if the Dodgers come back and score 4 runs off the Padres closer in that 9th inning. And it was a very realistic possibility. The Dodgers had 2 runners on and the top of their lineup almost there with nobody out. And just the most improbable thing ever happened. But I know I'm overly optimistic. I am what Gio in the chat would call blindly optimistic. But I don't feel any worse about the Dodgers' chances tomorrow than I did before this game. Dylan Cease was going to be tough. Jack Flaherty needs to step up and have a big game. Both of those things were true before this game happened. The difference is Jack Flaherty could have been pitching for a chance to actually clinch the division. Instead, he's pitching for a chance to, you put the Dodgers in a very good position to win the division. But yeah, the offense needs to show up against Dylan Cease, and then the offense needs to show up against Joe Musgrove, because we don't know what we're getting from Walker Buehler on Thursday. But the fact is, 2 wins, if the Dodgers win both these games, they clinch the division. 1 win, they're going to win the division if they win one of these 2 games. And that's, I think they still have a very good chance of winning at least one of these games, if not both.
And the thing for me, kind of looking at it, is offensively, we talk about reliance on home runs in the past. Maybe not as much this year as in years past, but the Dodgers had 2 hits or runners in scoring position. The Padres had 2 hits or runners in scoring position. The difference was that Jake Cronenworth hit a ball over the wall. And, that's the easiest way to score sometimes. And, realistically, that's the way a lot of playoff games are won sometimes. And obviously, this wasn't a playoff game, but felt like it. And it's one of those things where, yeah, the offense has got to come through. And, not to look at, we still look at it positively as the fact of the Dodgers still have a chance to win the World Series, maybe a little bit less than they did with Glasnow and some of these other guys, but they still have, a realistic shot. There's no real team that's out there that's just a complete juggernaut that you're like, oh man. Obviously the Padres are close enough to that because you don't want to lose to them, more so than, if the Padres were, even as good as they've been since different points of the season, where you could talk about the trade deadline, or since September, or since October, since August, whatever, the Dodgers are right behind them. So and that's what the Dodgers kind of being in flux this whole time. So there's different ways to talk yourself into it. I think the biggest part for me with these games is just like, all right, you at some point you got to go do it. Like you've already lost 8 of 11 to these guys. Like, not that I need to see that fire, that passion, whatever for the sake of it. I just want to see, like, okay, we're the Dodgers. We can get this done. We have an offense that needs to bail out the pitching, maybe not for Flaherty, but just in general. Like the way this Dodgers team is going to win is either an improbable or incredible run of pitching that happens, or the Dodgers offense says, okay, we're going to carry this team to October.
Yeah. And again, that's going to be what they do in the batter's box. Like they can do it with enthusiasm or looking bored. It doesn't change anything. You go hit line drives, and eventually Jurickson and Profar will stop catching them, and that's what the Dodgers need to do. And we'll see if they do it. We will be here either way after tomorrow night's game to talk about it some more. Hopefully a happier episode, hopefully less frustration. Gio, by the way, I saw your comment. I know you weren't referring to me about the blind optimism. I just mentioned you because I am definitely guilty of that. I find that it's more fun for me to be a baseball fan. Like I say, I'm going to have plenty of time to be miserable if and when the Dodgers get eliminated from the postseason. I am not going to start early. For me, that's like a basketball team pulling a guy because he's in foul trouble. All you're doing is guaranteeing that he has to miss time, which if you foul out, the penalties, you come out of the game. Kick a guy out of the game because he's in foul trouble, you're just locking in the penalty. I'm not going to lock in the penalty being grumpy. I'm going to remain optimistic. And the fact is, a lot of the time that pays off. October, it doesn't pay off as much for the Dodgers, but it did in 2020. It should have in 2017. There has been a lot of really good moments for the Dodgers, even in October, and a ton in the regular season. And I still believe they're coming in the next 5 days. So you got anything else, Vince?
I do not. Go win a game.
Yep, absolutely. That'll do it for us. Thank you all for being here with us live tonight. Had a good group, a good chat. I did end up putting a couple Padre fans in timeout, not because they were Padre fans, but because they were being vulgar. And that is where I draw the line. But thank you for the rest of you for being here. Thanks for being every day, or if you are. If you're not, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Remember to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. And Locked On Sports LA is where you can catch the Locked On Dodgers postcast after almost every Dodger game, hosted by Pete Fox. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Today, we sent out a text with a video of Shohei Ohtani being his own bodyguard in the outfield while he was throwing during batting practice. Will Ireton was standing in front of him, and there was a ball hit that Will couldn't quite get to, but Shohei made the play himself. So Shohei does everything. That's the kind of content you get if you're a Locked On Dodgers insider, so check that out. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We will talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.